Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Paranormal Portal Saturday edition, including our eye in the sky passing overhead currently. The helicopter's going over to the hospital, which I happen to live near. So if you hear a running motor, it's just a helicopter, and it'll pass really quickly. But our prayers to whomever needed it. I always say that when they go overhead. It's one of those things like, oh, God. Hope everybody's okay, but I hope you're all okay as well. Thanks for coming to the show. Thanks for being here. And before I go any further, let me introduce my good friend and co-host, Mr. Don Longbeard.
Ooh, sorry.
Yeah.
Still going through my head. Hey, it's Saturday.
It is Saturday. Happy Saturday, everybody. Hope you've had a phenomenal weekend thus far. It's been beautiful here. It's not been too hot. It's been...
That's your opinion.
Well, it was like 90 plus and just baking hot. And then today it was like, 75, 80. It's like, yeah, I'll take this. And a good breeze,
Yeah, no doubt.
You were chastising me a second ago.
Well, I've been inside all day and I've just been sweating my butt off.
Well,
and,
there is that.
Gosh, it's like, it just gets to the point where the next person that talks to you, you just want to just pick them up and... Let me put it this way.
There's therapy for that, by the way.
There was more morning than coffee.
Oh,
so that's my day.
I got you, and I understand. And if any of y'all had a poor Saturday, I'm sorry to hear that, but it's still better than any Monday.
That's true.
So, hope you guys are doing great. And again, thank you for joining us. And we are on to our Saturday edition. I do want to make note that next Wednesday and the following weekend there will be no shows for this next week. I have to travel back to Minnesota. My father's memorial is going to be happening, and just kind of a celebration memorial. He didn't want a funeral. He wanted people to get together and have fun, and so I'm traveling out for that, and it'll be good to get back home, in a lot of ways, and see everybody. I miss them all terribly. So that'll be coming up this next weekend. So there won't be any Paranormal Portals. So get your fix now, and remember, there's always the TFR Live archives. At tfrlive.com/paranormal portal if you want to check out some of our recent shows, or you can check us out on youtube.com/paranormal portal, where our archives are piling up as we speak. This is our 201st episode of the Paranormal Portal on our TFR Live counter. And of course, we've done more than that with our Wednesday live streams that are on YouTube only, but we've reached some benchmarks here at the portal, and you guys have been a big part of making it what it is. So thank you all for your support, your kindness, and your promotion. We've grown the way we've grown. I haven't sunk a dime into this promoting it. It's completely an organic growth, and it's all thanks to you guys. So thanks for being a part of the family and making sure people that love the paranormal know about the portal. So tonight we have a returning guest, a wonderful man. Somebody I'm always excited to get on the show because the depth and the intelligence is just mind-numbing for me. But it's just an amazing guy. He's a fellow TFR Live host with X Squared Radio on TFR Live, Mr. Brooks Agnew. Welcome back to the show, brother.
It's good to be here. Nice to be comfortably numb.
Welcome to my world. We are absolutely thrilled you're back. And ladies and gentlemen, if you're not familiar with Mr. Brooks Agnew, he is an accomplished scientist. He is an accomplished entrepreneur with his own automotive company that he is just cutting brand new ground on. He is a best-selling Amazon author with the Birth series and the Charm of Favor books, which are out on Amazon.com. So definitely check them out. And as I said before, you are the host of X Squared Radio. How do you find time for all this stuff, Brooks?
I put sleep on the back burner pretty much.
So you're running on fumes.
6 o'clock in the morning. By the time I hit the lab, it's about 7:45. I leave the lab about 5. I'm back. I'm on the air at 6, off at 8, 2 times a week, and then Sunday nights on at 8 and off at 11. And then in my spare time, write books and sing and have hobbies, real hobbies.
Wow. You have time for hobbies. That's amazing.
I think life should be nothing but moments, one after the other.
Absolutely. And ladies and gentlemen, I forgot to mention that Brooks is also co-host with Lucky One of TFR Live as well on the Quantum Connection show. And so, yeah, that's even another thing in your resume. But it's just a mind-numbing array of things that you do. And I appreciate so much that you're taking your time to come on the show here, because your 2 previous visits have been just phenomenal with your ability to break down these incredibly complex and confusing scientific principle into digestible bites that we can all follow. And you've brought a whole new reality to the paranormal to me personally. I've just been absolutely thrilled, and I can't, every time we're done with the show, I'm just like, wow.
Where's that bag of ice? I gotta cool the bean down.
I gotta ice my melon. But it's just been amazing. So you've been an absolute asset.
We should have something, burning in the middle of the room, and we should be.
We do, our brains.
As while we're having this conversation. But it's good to be phenomenally paranormal. That's what the whole idea is about.
I love that. I'm going to make that T-shirt now.
People say, well, what does paranormal mean? Well, they associate it with ghosts and goblins, but what paranormal really means above normal. Mm-hmm. And that's what you guys do. Well,
the cool thing is the idea that you have a respect and awareness of the paranormal, and yet you are so scientifically grounded, and it would seem to most people to be a real dichotomy, but you've come to this amazing balance and equilibrium with both worlds.
I'm always amused at people who say, they're grounded, or that person's really grounded, because just by saying that, you admit that there's the ungrounded.
Oh, good point.
Which means that, it's like saying light exists because there's darkness. But to say that, someone is grounded means that other people are not, which is the whole variety of life. I mean, I think life would be very boring if we were all grounded.
Yeah. No, that's true. And you're absolutely right. And I know, what the one thing with the paranormal, and I suppose this is true of any fields out there, there are enthusiasts, there are these people that take it to a whole different level, and everything in between. So it's like, there's people that believe in ghosts, there's people that believe in, that nearly everything has a spiritual presence, and then there's the spectrum in between. Now, would you, in your understanding of science and the paranormal, would you say that that's true, that everything does have consciousness?
Well, I think everything does have consciousness, but, a rock has consciousness, a puppy has consciousness, but not, and people have consciousness. It's just that not everything or everyone is conscious that they're conscious. So, once you become self-aware and conscious, you can learn to direct your own consciousness, or become aware of time, like the past or the future, or go home and try to teach your dog about tomorrow. You can't. It's no concept, because although they're conscious, they have a personality. They get mad at you and they can be happy with you and they miss you. All of that emotion, all of that attachment, all of that extra friendship is there, but they're not conscious that they're conscious. So this is the extra level of awareness that we like to see in people, that not only are they conscious, because they certainly are affecting the universe, whether they're aware of it or not, but it's better if they're aware of it and they participate in it. I listened to a speech one time. Somebody said, well, there's two kinds of taters. There's spectators, and then there's participatators.
Participators.
I am not very often a spectator. I like to participate. I like to watch golf, but I like to play golf even better.
Ah, sure. Yeah, very good point. Spectators and participatators. I'm gonna have to remember that.
You'll never say it right ever again as long as you got that in your mind. You can't say participate anymore because you've got this participate.
I know. I'm trying to teach a 3-year-old to talk, and you might have just screwed that up for at least one word.
Hip Hop Anonymous.
That's awesome.
Oh wow. Yeah, it's really interesting how many people just want to sit back and watch it go by. So, talking about being conscious, and being a participant, it's really sickening and disheartening how many people just want to sit by and watch it go by and not really do anything. There was a time when I was kind of like motivated to not do anything. I was very unmotivated. But then I realized, like you said, like you alluded to, you got to get out and participate to have those moments, And people think nowadays that you're supposed to see what life brings around. Why wait and see? Get out and do. So.
Well, now you've opened another level, and that is, there's one level of participation, and that is, hey, we're all grabbing a bunch of sticks, and we're going to go down and beat these people up down by the Trump rally. Let's go participate. So they all go and do it, a mob. Yeah. But then there's another level, and that is to start something. Every single movement ever, whether it's civil rights or reading or whatever it is not started by groups. It's started by one person. Oh. Yeah. And that's when we realize how greatly empowered we are as individuals. We can actually start something that could change the world.
That is very true, and that gets, it's the whole idea. Now, I believe that we are all creators of our experience, and by having that belief, that doesn't mean I totally get it yet, but at least I understand that what's going on in my world, I am responsible for, that I brought it into being for some reason or another. But I think that is not only just on an experiential level, like I'm going to choose to clean my room, therefore I've created a clean space. I think it's to a fundamental level that means I've created the physical space as well. And then I guess it gets into a myriad of other things, but what do you think about that?
It can go beyond that. For instance, I find myself in a condition where I'm living in scarcity, and you try to explain to that person, well, we are pretty much 100% responsible for our life condition. You wanted this. And they get furious. Oh no, I didn't. I don't want to be in scarcity. I don't want to have this. Yeah. But then you say, okay, well, let's go back and review even the most recent set of choices that you made. You were in school, but you got high and dropped out. That's a choice that you made that robbed you of intelligent earning power, which could be responsible for why you're in scarcity. You see, the life choices that we make, and they become cumulative, they have an effect overall about your quality of life, what you're able to earn, what you're able to keep after you earn it, what your level of satisfaction with your life or your life partner is largely based upon choices that you made, actions that you took on those choices. And it's cumulative. So it's a very empowering thing, but it's also kind of a frightening thing, because you realize that you're sitting there in the middle of life with no net. You're on the high wire by yourself with no net.
Yeah.
It's a very odd realization.
Now, how do you think that also then translates into the slit experiment with the particles behaving as both a wave and as a particle, based upon observation? Were those people then were creating the reality of how that behaved, though, correctly? Or correct?
Yes. But when you're talking about a wave, you are basically talking about a thought. You're talking about a dream. You're talking about a concept. But here's what happens. When people begin to share that concept with others, and by share it, I mean speak about it. Okay, here's what I'm going to do. Here's what my plan is. Mm-hmm. What you're doing at the instant that you speak about that to another person, you've placed that current idea out of your mouth into someone else's ear. You have collapsed it into a particle. It doesn't mean it doesn't exist anymore. It just can't propagate the way that it did. It can't set up the interference patterns in the future that you need in order to make that manifest. You've collapsed it into a particle. It's sort of like when somebody receives a vision and it's given them some insight into where to stand or what to invest in or what to not do, or what's going to happen in the near future. Mm-hmm. It greatly empowers them. But if they jump on the radio and say, I've had a vision, and they share it with everyone, they just collapsed the whole thing to a particle, and it may not actually happen then. It stopped propagating.
Huh.
This is the wave-particle duality, and it takes a tremendous amount of self-discipline when even your spouse or your friend says, tries to pry this idea out of you. You need to say, I can't talk about it right now because it's still in flux. It's still vibrating. If I start speaking about it, what's going to happen? We used to call it jinxing it, but it actually collapses the idea, and you could feel it, because what the person's going to do is come right around and say, wow, Brent, congratulations on that. But you don't feel successful. You don't feel like you deserve those congratulations because it hasn't happened yet. And now it's not going to happen because you just collapsed it into a pile of, French fries on the table. It's not going to happen.
Wow.
And you could feel it. You could feel the energy leave the idea the instant somebody says that to you after you've shared a concept with them.
Wow. That is incredibly profound and deep as hell. I'm sorry, that wasn't very poetic, but I mean, it's just one of those things. I'd never considered that on that level. That once it becomes shared, it's contained. It doesn't have the ability to force an effect into a future state because you've contained it into a moment, and it's therefore
you collapsed it into the present. It became now, and now doesn't propagate anywhere.
Wow. That is, that's a kind of depth that I would imagine was whispered in secret societies all over the world, or secret practices like the arcane knowledge of the ancients, that kind of stuff. It's those kind of concepts, I think.
Well, it wasn't much about keeping secrets, because Jesus didn't do it either. His people asked him questions. Uh-huh. The way he answered the questions was in parables.
Sure.
So that he could keep the idea fluid. He could keep the idea in flux. He would make the person wonder about, what did he just say? And that's the whole idea, is to keep that wonder, because then when it happens, that person's going to say, oh, that's what he meant.
Right. And that's a real profound method of Buddhist teaching as well. I mean, that the old answering a question with a question is, it's as old as time as well. That's very profound. Huh.
Or you would say to the Buddha, well, I want to go, to this place. And the Buddha would say, well, the instant you put your foot on the path, you're already there. You're just in the past of that. But once you're on the path, it's already being realized. Oh. Mm-hmm. And that's I always love that idea. In fact, I used it in my book, Remember the Future, when I was talking about dreaming. I used the analogy of a sandcastle. I said, when you go to the beach, you take your bucket and you take your shovel, and you have this idea, I'm going to go to the beach and build a sandcastle. But the idea of going to the beach is not really to build the sandcastle. It's to be building the sandcastle. It's to go to the beach and enjoy building the sandcastle. Because when the sandcastle is finished, what do? I mean, you jump on it or walk away from it or let the waves take it. But there's no satisfaction, actually, in finishing the sandcastle, because that wasn't the goal at all. So I tried to explain to people, look, you're in college, you're a sophomore, you're a new employee with 6 months on the job, you're on the path. One of these days, you and your retired wife are going to sit on the porch or be selling your company to a big conglomerate, and you're going to say to one another, you remember when we first started this company and we were operating out of that little, 9,000 square foot, live work, and we had sawdust on the floor and we worked till 2:00. Remember those? Yeah, I remember those days. And you're reminiscing about it. You're going, wow, that was a great struggle. But man, at 1:00 in the morning, when you're actually in there making the last coat of varnish on that furniture you're going to deliver the next day, you hated that moment.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to teach people is you got to savor those moments. Like my wife used to tell me all the time when our kids would be running around the house, and you know how kids are, when they run, somebody's going to get hurt eventually. And she was trying to watch TV or something, and she would say, would you make these kids be quiet? I'm trying to watch TV. And I would say, hey, look, it's going to be quiet soon enough.
Yeah, yeah.
And it is.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like 5 minutes ago, my kid's 3 years old, running around the house.
Yeah.
Was just about ready to get hurt.
That's very true. Very profound. You're quite a teacher, sir. There's no question. You've got such an understanding of so many principles and ideas. It's really cool because, again, you break them down in such, I don't know, very poetically is the best I could say, and make them very digestible.
All chemists are poets.
Are they really?
It's not, the reciprocal's not true, by the way, I'm pretty sure. But learning the alternative symbols and the language and the balance of chemistry sets your brain up for poetry.
Oh. I would never have guessed that, but I guess only a chemist would understand that.
We're pretty sick that way.
Well, as long as you're working to make the world a better place, then I'm all for it.
Unfortunately, not all chemists had that lofty goal.
No, I know, but it's again, it's refreshing to know that somebody like yourself is really doing that. And I know with your company, I don't know, is it public knowledge what your company is, or is that still not talked about yet?
Public knowledge what the company does.
Okay.
We're just not publicly traded, so we don't do like press releases to, jack the price of our stock or anything like that. We're not like Tesla Motors, where we don't really make money selling cars. They make money selling stock, and they're good at it. I applaud them for it. Mm. They're a tech company that sells cars. We make electric trucks. We know what we do. We do it better than anybody else, and we have the only on-highway 100% electric truck in the world, and that's what we do.
And that's such a profound thing, and it's a technology that's long overdue, getting away from a lot of the of course, the destructive technologies that we've been using for far too long. So it's really great that you've created this company to get away from those old chains that have bound us for so long with the petroleum industries and the countries, and it's a how I mean, do you have, I guess it's only a minute till break, but I was going to ask about your rollout. Do you find a lot of pushback on your concept?
Not from customers, no. The pushback is basically a multi-front blockade by the federal government with several agencies trying to prevent electric vehicles from coming to the American highway. But we are slowly but surely moving those out of the way. Because if there's one thing about America that you can't stop, if somebody wants to buy it, somebody is going to be able to sell it.
That's right. Yep.
Very true. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to move to our first break of the night. And as you can see with this first half hour, some of the most profound discussion I've had in my lifetime just occurred. And
ready?
Yeah, well, we're at the half-hour break already. It goes that quickly, but we'll be right back in just a couple minutes, ladies and gentlemen. Don't go away, and we'll return, of course, with more of Mr. Brooks Agnew on the Paranormal Portal.
Yay!
Hooray! So I'm not sure if the bumper music's going to come in, Brooks, but we'll play it like it is.
Okay. We can talk about the union of the polarity after the break.
All right, sounds awesome. We'll be right back, ladies and gentlemen.
The ayahuasca vine is the non-psychoactive.
Into the truth frequency.
Your protection from deception. TLC.
And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the second half hour of our show tonight. We are just cruising this Saturday night away, and hope you're enjoying it so far. If you've been paying attention, I don't see any way you couldn't be enjoying it. I'm just absolutely thrilled. So, welcome back, Mr. Brooks Agnew, and thanks for being here with us tonight.
My pleasure.
It is a pleasure of all of ours, I guess.
Absolutely.
It's your pleasure to be here, and it's our pleasure to have you, for sure.
Absolutely.
So before the break, you were talking about getting into the something of the something.
The union of the polarity. I mean, when we started writing back in 2004, we started on a series of books called The Ark of Millions of Years. Right. This is what Noah called his ship in some of the ancient writings. We studied 44 ancient cultures, their writings, their architecture, their philosophy, and we discovered this almost universal concept called the union of the polarity. And what it basically described was the blending of two earths. One earth was a lower vibrational earth, a lower energy type of matter called temporal matter. And the other one was a higher vibrational or spiritual level of matter called spirit matter. So you had this cataclysmic blending, which occurred, we believe, during the flood of Noah, where this higher vibrational planet and lower vibrational planet were brought together in this orbit around this sun. And the result is the Earth we live on now. Well, they're forward thinking because of the prophets that survived those cataclysms in almost all of those ancient societies. Seemed to point to a day in the future when the two planets would come back apart. So they come together for a while in harmony, and then over time become more and more dissident, and then finally they come apart. And the higher vibrational or spirit part of the Earth goes back through the rift in the Milky Way to the origin that it came from, where we talk, we look at Genesis, for instance, where the Spirit of God moves across the face of the deep and divides the waters from the waters. Basically, it's a giant water planet that's divided in two. And then one of the water planets is sent through space over a 3-day or 3 creation day period and placed in orbit around a sun, with a sun to rule over the day and a moon to rule over the night. So that you've got this 3-day period when this water planet only has light, whatever, let there be light means. Mm-hmm. And then it's sent off to a place where it's put in orbit. We don't know if that was 3 days or 3 million years or 3,000 years, but it was 3 creative periods anyway. So the architecture and the writing and the cylinders and papyrus and stone carvings of all of these ancient societies, going back 25,000 years, 3,000 years, 8,000, 500 years, what we see is they were all pointing toward this day, like this time, like 2012, 2020, right in this time. Uh-huh. And so that's why at the conclusion of the Ark of Millions of Years series, which was 4 volumes, 2,000 pages, it brought us to this culmination where it was all gloom and doom. It was like, oh my gosh, we're all headed for this terrible cataclysm and there's no hope for mankind. But I felt that there was. So I wrote Remembering the Future, which kind of unlocked a secret for me. It opened something in me, and that's where the Birth trilogy came from. The Birth trilogy is 1,100 pages. It is an action adventure, sci-fi, Tom Clancy meets Interstellar kind of book, but everything in it is true. all based on actual events.
Oh.
So the book takes you through the union of the polarity in reverse. The union is coming apart, and so is the race of mankind. The race of mankind is being divided. We're going through this process that the Old Testament calls the grand division, where light is being separated from darkness. And it says, even in the book of Revelation, that the darkness will not be able to comprehend the light. In other words, it's going to become unaware of it. It's going to be vibrating at a completely different level than darkness. And we're seeing that right now. We're watching it happen before our eyes. We're seeing world leadership is basically calling out the dark side to do battle, in the streets or in politics, which is really just the mechanism of religion. And what's happening is the dark lords of the planet are having to take off their masks and pick up their warhammer to do battle in the streets with the forces of light. And the whole world is getting to see them for who they are. They're no longer able to mask themselves. They're now exposed in the light. And that's what we're seeing happen. And a lot of the world isn't ready for it. We don't really want to know that there's this terrible dark syndicate out there that's been working behind the scenes for hundreds of years to wipe liberty and freedom off the face of the earth. We don't want to know. We want to go. We want to take the blue pill and go back into the matrix. But a lot of us are now awakened, and everywhere I go, like I was in the Dallas Producers Association breakfast a couple days ago down in Dallas, Texas, because I'm talking about taking birth to the small screen.
Oh, cool.
So we're talking about the screenplay, and I'm talking to actors and producers and directors and makeup artists. There's 40 of us at this breakfast. And I'm totally amazed how many people in this meeting hated Donald Trump. I just couldn't believe it. I said, you guys got to be kidding me. This is Texas. This is Texas. How could you possibly think that way? But there they are. There they are with their masks off in real life, right there in front of me. It just blew my mind how these people are everywhere. And they used to be hidden. We used to not be able to see them. Now there's a big difference between the individuals who are lighting up and the individuals who want to stay in the matrix. They want to stay dumb and ignorant.
Wow. It's definitely a concerning time for me. I'm absolutely shocked with the nature of people being so incredibly full of vitriol and hatred. I'm not used to that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we're used to having open dialogue and, discussing points of doctrine or discussing points of politics or points of policy. But wow, when they just instantly switch on the hatred and all of a sudden here come all these names and this vile,
right.
I don't even know how to describe it. It's not intelligent. It's just raw emotion.
Yeah, it's venomous is what it seems. And I'm not telling or advocating anybody, promote whoever they choose to. That's fine, but it can still be done with civil discourse and intelligent conversation. But you're right. What we're seeing now is just, it's absolutely angry. It's such a dark response to what used to be normal politics. Right. It used to be normal politics.
Well, because it was all kind of hidden in the matrix, but now we're seeing it come out. Now we're seeing, oh my gosh, you mean these people were actually murdered because of this? You mean that there were people that were actually buying votes, You mean like paying money for them? That's not the way our republic works.
Right.
But man, they don't want you to know that. They just want to. I don't know. It's pretty crazy. They liked it that way,
Yeah.
and but I don't know what they really liked about it, because everybody's life was terrible, under those conditions.
Right, they were. And it does. I've been saying it for quite a while now, and it's mostly, I can only say it's from a very intuitive place within me, and I repeat it all the time, and I feel very redundant, but I just think it has to do with the conversation, in that I know we're in a very important time right now. I know on a deep the core of my being, I know this is an important time. In so much so, in fact, that this will be a time when we'll be telling our grandkids, I was there. I was there when this happened. And it'll be a time that will be remembered as, a very pivotal and important transition period for us as a human race, as human beings. So
well, that's a very good observation. When I used to describe this to my kids, I would say, according to the scriptures, according to all the ancient writings, there's going to come a day when this line, we used to call it, knowing right from wrong, right? Well, that line is kind of thin, and there are a lot of people that are on one side of the line, or they're on the other side of the line, but there's a whole lot of people that like to straddle that line. Like Monday through Saturday, they're like over on this side. Yeah. And then Sunday, they come back to this line and they sing some songs, and they, put a suit on, and they look really good, and they kind of straddle the line. But here's what's going to happen before too long, probably in your lifetime, is the line is going to start getting thicker and thicker and thicker. And pretty soon your left and right feet are going to be spread so far apart you can barely stand up. And then you're going to have to make a choice.
Right.
Okay, I got to jump on this side, or I got to jump on that side. But I can no longer straddle this line. I got to make a choice. And that line, Brent, is about 100 yards wide now.
Wow. Yeah.
And now we're beginning to see, okay, those are the people on that side of the line, and these are the people on this side of the line. And we used to think when we were little, well, there can't be that many people like that. I mean, it's like a small minority.
Right.
Oh, no. It's like 50-50. It's like 47-53. It's darn close.
Yeah.
How many of both sides there are.
You're right. And, and it's interesting when you said that not even the darkness will be able to comprehend the light, because it really feels like the argument that's going on now. It's like one side can't understand. I mean, just on a real fundamental level, they can't understand the sickness of the other side, and it's vice versa. Looking back the other way, it's like, well, they can't understand why that other side doesn't understand. And you're right. It's like this total division of comprehension, and it's almost like a division of cognitive processes. And that you may absolutely be dead on. I've been trying to figure out what changed all of a sudden. Why have people become absolutely unforgiving and absolutely cauterized in their position? And maybe that's just it. It's this transition. That's it's as good an explanation as any, for sure.
Well, you bring up a really good point, and that is the word forgiveness. So the word, let's just call it redemption. The people that are the higher vibrational, the spiritual people, okay, they, for the most part, wouldn't think of picking up something that doesn't belong to them. That if they walked into a Target parking lot and found somebody's car there running with the keys in it and no one was sitting in it, the thought would never cross their mind to jump in that car and drive away with it, because that's just the kind of people they are. They're higher vibrational. They don't have thoughts like that. But there are other people who look for situations like that. They justify it in their mind. Oh, look how stupid this person is. They left the keys in their car idling with the window rolled down here in the parking lot. They must want me to steal this car.
Mm-hmm.
And I really want this car. And so they just take it because it's there and they want it. They don't have a concept of not doing it. Mm-hmm. So this whole idea of redemption or forgiveness becomes an affront to them. They don't think they should have to be forgiven or redeemed from anything because it's what they want to do. Sure. So this is where the core of the hatred comes from, because I can be dead honest with you. The light person or the light spiritual people, they would be quick to forgive and slow to anger.
Yeah.
It's not so with the other side. They will pick up a stick and beat your brains out if you even insinuated that you were going to forgive them. They couldn't take it. That's the difference between them. And so as this line gets wider and wider, now it's 100 yards wide, pretty soon it's going to be 100 miles wide. Darkness will be so far away from the light, they will not comprehend it. And that's what's happening right now. This grand division is very soon going to turn into a gathering where all of the like-minded souls will gather together. Mm-hmm. And then the world will come apart.
Right. Now, I have kind of an odd question for you, and this is as I'm thinking of, okay, these two ancient worlds came together, and the higher vibration and the lower vibration to a whole, to a complete. Now, is it possible for them to disattach? Do they occupy the same space of matter, or do they occupy different levels of matter, and therefore they can merge apart and they will both still be complete, just without the other vibrational spectrum?
Yeah, the answer is yes, with a clarification.
Okay.
Think of it like a 5-gallon plastic bucket, and you've taken the bucket and you've filled it with glass marbles, as full as it can get without rounding, up beyond the rim. Mm-hmm. That is the lower vibrational earth. Lots of space in it, lots of solidity about it. Now you take a higher vibrational earth, which is another bucket with water, and you pour it into the bucket with the marbles, and it fills in all the gaps, but it occupies the same bucket. So we have the same world that's being occupied by two different aspects of matter, one higher vibrational, one lower vibrational, one kind of filling in all the spaces of the other. But when they come apart, what will happen is the void will be left in the old world, and it'll be somewhat of a remnant for the world that separates and goes back through the rift of the Milky Way back to its origin. When the world that Adam lived on up until Noah merged with the earth that had man and woman, till the earth, multiply and replenish, that man, that lower Adam, when they merged, the two gene pools also merged. And so the human race that we see on the earth today is a spectra of that original blending of two atoms. So I don't think it's so much a DNA thing where, this DNA is going to go higher vibrational, this DNA is going to go lower vibration. That's not it at all.
Okay.
What it has to do is with the other aspect of matter, which is, if you look at the human body, this biological transducer that we're using to talk on the radio right now with, we're not really this, bag of protein and water. We're, spiritual, animated, leaping, flying being that's inside this biological transducer. Uh-huh. We're the personality that gives this DNA life. And, you know, when we die, that is to say, when we assume room temperature, the bag of protein and water stays behind, and the spirit goes on to occupy another, or to become another form, or to grow, or to go home, or whatever is going to happen to it. Same thing with the earth, which implies that Earth itself, the planet Earth, is a living thing. Mm-hmm. And it has a symbiotic relationship with the beings, conscious or not conscious that they're conscious, that live on it.
That is really cool. And that was very, very poetically brought back to right where we started and that whole thought process. That's pretty amazing.
I hope I punctuated it all correctly. You know, it is almost 1 o'clock in the morning here.
You're doing great. You're functioning at 1 o'clock is better than mine at noon. So I'm just usually running on fumes, but no, I just think it's absolutely an amazing discussion. It's a really cool reinterpretation of a lot of ancient stories, and it makes sense. I mean, it really does, and it does at least offer a narrative to some of the madness going on right now, and that I appreciate more than anything, just because of the confusion of it all for me personally. Now, Regla in the chat room says, Brooks, can you talk a bit more about the creating thing? Like, how would you go about recreating or rescuing that energetic field that's been lost by putting it out there?
That's a very good point. You know, once you collapse an idea into particles, mm-hmm. it's very difficult to get it vibrating again. So what you have to do, and I use that word loosely because no one's going to make you do this. Right. Putting ideas out is something humans are unique at. No other being on this planet that we know of. I mean, there may be some other intelligent beings, but they're not coming out and saying, "Here am I." We're the only intelligent beings that we know of that can do this. We can put an idea, a thought, a dream, a concept out in the future, or for that matter, in the past. Although the past doesn't give us a lot of latitude because of choices and decisions that have already been made, but there is some latitude. Mm-hmm. There is some latitude. That's what we call clearing, being able to go back and change the way that we're affected by something that happened in the past, either an emotional loss or a person that left us, or a person that died, or a job that you lost that just devastated you at the time. Mm-hmm. How you can go back and look at it in a much more healthy way and say, wow, I guess I did live, so I survived, but now I want to do more than survive. I want to thrive. I want to do better. And I really don't want to do that again. But we have this ability to put an idea out in the future, and the more clear and complete that we can make that idea, the more richly it will vibrate in all directions, past and future. Now, what I try to say in my unique philosophy is that once that energy is put out there in the universe, there are other things in the universe that will begin sympathetically vibrating with that energy. Not just musical instruments, but also other ideas and other inanimate objects will start vibrating with that concept that we've put out there in the future. Where people become misguided is they think, well, if I just keep going out there and keep, hammering that one idea over and over and over again, eventually it's going to become a reality. That's not necessarily true, because you're just pounding on the source of that idea. What you need to do once the source is out there is go address the things that are sympathetically vibrating with that idea. You've got to put energy into those other things too, which might mean, taking another job, or answering another email, or moving to another town, what'll happen is you'll get these promptings to do things. And if you're listening correctly to the universe, it'll say, yes, that's the thing that I need to do, or I need to say, or I need to buy, or I need to answer, or I need to think about in order to push that sympathetic vibration back to the original idea in the future. And what will happen is all those thought channels come back into that concept, and it begins to manifest. It begins to solidify. And I will tell you this, irrefutably, it works with having stuff beautifully. But don't get caught up in it, because it will betray you in the end. The best thing to manifest are things that you want to be and things that you want to do. The having will come. And even if it doesn't come, it won't matter, because you're going to be what you want to be, and you're going to be doing what you want to do.
Okay, folks, we're going to take our hour break, and we'll be right back with more of Brooks Agnew here on the Portal. Don't go away.
Proud to feature cutting-edge programs like Beyond the Veil with Chris and Cherie Geo.
Play their games. Everybody loves to place their bets. They don't understand the price I paid. They don't care to comprehend. Trace their lines upon my body, ripping scars across my heart. Raging anger boils inside me as their lies keep falling apart. With my silence, I am not a stupid boy. No more breaking me with kindness, just you dance upon my joy. Leading me with empty promise, you're just another fucking mess. Taking on the frequency.
Your protection from deception. This is Truth Frequency Radio.
This looks extraordinarily bad.
They linger in a perpetual dream state, a nightmare from which they cannot wake. I can't see you, Mommy. Where are you? I've never sensed anything like it. Carol Ann is not like those she's with. They're attracted to the one thing about her that is different from themselves. Her life force. It is very strong. It gives off its own illumination. It is a light that implies life and memory of love and home and earthly pleasures. Something they desperately desire, but can't have anymore. Right now, she's the closest thing to that.
Poltergeists are usually associated with an individual. Hauntings seem to be connected with an area. A house, usually.
Poltergeist disturbances are of fairly short duration, perhaps a couple of months. Hauntings can go on for years.
And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the second hour of our show tonight. It is absolutely flying by, but we're doing good here. Hope you guys are doing good as well and enjoying the show and having a good time and enjoying the discourse and or the discussion, not discourse, but just some amazing concepts. And of course, our special guest tonight is Mr. Brooks Agnew. Thanks, Brooks, for being here and staying up late with us.
You know, it's my pleasure. I love doing this. And you guys, you're doing great. You're doing what you want to do. You had a dream when you were young. I want to be a talk radio host someday. And guess what? You are.
This one fell in my lap, but I'm enjoying it. That's for sure.
You know, it's a pretty great thing to be able to devote so much time and energy and attention to something that I'm absolutely passionate about. It's that old saying, you find something you love doing, you'll never work a day in your life. And so it's been that for me, and I've really just having a blast doing the portal and getting the opportunity to talk with people like yourself. You know, someone that, had it not been for TFR and for your presence on our network, I may never have met you and had the chance to ask you the things that I've asked you and hear your input and your understanding of these concepts. And so it's just been such a neat experience, and so many other guests that we've had. So I'm like a kid in the candy store.
Definitely.
Well, that's an interesting observation. In 1996 or 1997, the internet started to begin to get fast. I mean, people were, I don't think cable modems were out very much yet. We were still, we were still into dial-up modems, and it wasn't really DSL then.
Sure.
But it was coming on. I mean, high-speed internet was getting there. More and more people, more and more companies were deciding that they needed a website. In 96, I think in my lab, we still had a set of the Thomas registers, which is a 24-volume set. Each volume is about 3.5 inches thick. So you can imagine how big of a set of lime green books these were. But it listed every single manufacturer in America that made stuff.
Wow.
Wire and bearings and paint and just everything. So, when we had a project we wanted to do, like I wanted to design a polymer printing blanket instead of a rubber printing blanket. I needed all kinds of components, polyols and solvents, and I needed to know what companies made that stuff. So I'd go to the Thomas Register and start thumbing through it by alphabetical order until I found their fax number. We used fax numbers back then, and their mailing address. And so I would prepare a query and I would mail it to them with a stamp, or maybe I'd fax them or call them up, which I had to pay long distance charges for. We don't even know what that is anymore. And that's how we put projects together. It took months to put a project together.
Sure.
In 96, 97, I think I ordered my last set of Thomas registers, and they said, "Well, we're getting about 5,000 companies a month that are adding a website to." Yeah, it was coming on strong. So by 98, or late 97, early 98, catalogs were starting to come onto websites. So you could go to their website and look at their bearings. You could look at their, part numbers, and you could actually order stuff online. Right. Amazon was losing money. It wasn't even, forget about it. It wasn't going to succeed. There was no shipping infrastructure. Nothing had come to what it is today. So now you flash forward 20 years. Here we are, 2018, and the whole neural network of mankind has changed. Yep. We now have a whole new generation of young people that were born about the time the internet was just going high speed. So they grew up with this Library of Alexandria at their fingertips. Yeah. I didn't have that till I was 40-something years old. Right. So, talk about being a kid in a candy store. If you're self-taught or you're self-driven, you're up till 1, 2 o'clock in the morning every single night reading papers, studying math, learning new concepts, new designs, new programs. It was crazy how much you could learn. But kids today, they grew up with that. Now, look what happened. The millennials, they're totally screwed up. They don't have... I don't even know where their brain is at. Sure. But the next generation, the kids that these millennials are having, they're going to be nothing short of phenomenal. Because they're going to have parents who grew up with the internet. They've already made all the mistakes. They already know, how to overload on it and what not to do and what to do. And the next generation of kids is going to evolve mankind. What we have to do as the sages, that were alive in the last century, we have to offer the wisdom to our grandkids, the children of the millennials, to say, look, this is what it was like, when we had snail mail, when we had to pay 12 cents a minute for long distance. I know you don't have a concept of that.
I do.
What's long distance? I don't know what that means. Yeah. But what'll happen is we'll combine our wisdom with the superior intellect of the next generation, and the race of mankind is going to change. So the difficult thing to watch is the dark leadership. That is to say, those dark forces that ruled the world for thousands of years, up until 1776. One guy basically ruled the whole world at a time. One guy, one king, one emperor ruled the entire world. There was no such thing as freedom. There was no such thing as liberty. Or if you were born to a baker, you didn't become a mathematician. You didn't become an engineer. That just didn't happen. You were born to a baker. You were a baker. That was it. That's just the structure. We don't have that anymore. Yes, it's still that way in most of the world, but it's not that way in this country. In this country, you could be anything you want to be if you are willing to work hard enough and you have the talent. Right. You can do it. The dark forces in the universe, which, believe me, are alive and well here on this planet, they want to end that. They want it to return to the time when one man ruled the world for his entire life, and then it was his son that ruled it for his entire life. They want the world to return to that time, and we cannot let that happen, because the race of mankind is about to evolve, and we don't want to go back to that kind of monarchy We want to be a free people.
Yes, I would agree, and I think anybody listening would absolutely agree with that. That we I don't know what would happen if we were forced back into, those jars of the past and those roles of the past, and to be absolutely ruled. It's certainly not the cookie cutter that I have planned for my existence and my children's.
Well, maybe not you, but I can guarantee you that about 47% of the people that live inside the United States right now, that's exactly what they want.
Yeah.
And they're pushing for it. And they are craftier than crafty. Look what happened this week. Look what happened just this week. We started to put a justice on the Ninth Circuit Court, had it all approved, voted for cloture to end the filibuster, which means you got 30 hours to vote up or down with this justice. 3 hours before the vote, the dark cabal pulled a trick, compromised 2 men, and ruined the entire thing. That man's name is now withdrawn. He's done. He'll never be a justice. In fact, this one move that happened Friday of this week, one move may have terminated all hope for the Supreme Court ever having another justice appointed.
Wow.
That's profound. It was super powerful, dark moves that were made this week.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of people, of course, have gotten into the Q phenomenon and into the truth movement because of this darkness and because of these nefarious people that seem to be underneath it all, trying to steer us towards this global control. But I think that they thought that it would just be a bucket full of memes, and then all the bad guys would go away, and it would just be let's recreate the system. But clearly, they're whatever these beings or people are, or combination of both, they're not planning on just stepping down and surrendering without dragging, kicking, and screaming.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I think that the Nephilim that were here during Noah's time, and were largely responsible for the whole collapse in the first place, because the God of the Old Testament wouldn't have destroyed the world by flood if it hadn't become so corrupted that he just basically had to do a Control-Alt-Delete on the whole thing. But after all that was done, after the two earths came together and everything seemed to be like a complete restart, with Noah and a little bit of his bloodline preserved, guess who showed up again? The Nephilim. They weren't destroyed. They went off planet. They waited till the cataclysm was done. They came back down, and they're small in number, only 200 of them to begin with, and they don't all have the same talents. But now there are 7+ billion people on the earth. A mere 100 or 200 of them could never withstand all of us. But they can work behind the scenes. And they don't have 100 or 200 years of personal experience. They have tens of thousands of years of personal experience, because they're immortals compared to us. And they're able to work behind the scenes and teach these secrets, these combinations, these oaths, these covenants, these spells and powers. I call it the charm of favor in my last book. They teach these secrets, dark secrets of the universe, deep magic, let's call it, to men and women who are willing to sell their souls for this knowledge. And we're seeing those individuals who fear nothing. They don't fear armies. They don't fear judges. They don't fear presidents. They don't fear police or soldiers or anybody. They're fearless. because they are protected by these deep magical powers. And all they really want to do is be rich and be satiated. Every single carnal desire they have, they want it to be satiated beyond anything we could ever imagine. Because once you're satiated and you have that much power, there's no end to it.
Right. Yeah.
Maybe there's an end to it and you become so miserable you take your own life. But the ones that don't become so dark and so fearsome that they become the most powerful humans in the world. And everyone fears them. I call it the Clinton crime syndicate just because I have to give it a name. But we're talking about a syndicate that is incredibly wealthy, worth trillions of dollars, with tens of thousands of loyal soldiers who would walk straight into machine gun fire if they were ordered to. Sacrifice their own children if they were ordered to. And they do every day. And that's what we're up against in this world.
Jeez. Yeah, it's horrible. And you're right. I've heard when we've had Duncan on as well as Chris Everard, we went into this a bit as well, and from the royal family all the way to the Clintons to so this handful of people determining global the flow of the globe or the state of affairs, or trying to.
Oh, we used to think it was a handful of people. We used to think, oh, the Bilderbergs, they get together and they plan everything that's going to happen in the world. But I will tell you that since the advent of the internet and the ability for you and me and I'd say a couple of dozen of small conferences around the country, we've been able to plant light out there. And it is frustrating, their plans. They think that they can manipulate us and push us with money or propaganda or music or movies or any way they want to. But we're not so easily convinced because we are awake and we're aware and we're self-determining and we're sovereign. And the most incredible thing about us, I think, and I include you in this group, is we love with such power they cannot break us.
Yeah, I would agree. It's what it feels like to me personally, and I've felt this evolution of sorts within myself, from the shift in vibration to the increased awareness to I don't know, feels like the energy is just increasing. Whether I'm just aware of it and it's been there all the time, or if it's increasing as well, my awareness is increasing and it's building and we're moving towards this crescendo. What I can tell you is that things that I used to take a lot of pleasure in just feel like, it's like wearing a pair of shoes that doesn't fit anymore. You know what I mean?
Well, there's a difference between pleasure and joy. And I don't know I don't know if it's because we age. I doubt it. I think it's because we realize that pleasure is so temporary. It's sort of like that first couple spoonfuls of chocolate ice cream. It's so good. But after a bowl, you don't want another bowl, until tomorrow maybe. But you become satiated with pleasure.
Yeah.
That's the part about the dark side that becomes almost intolerable for us.
Right.
Because they don't have joy. All they have is pleasure. And what happens after a while, when you get so much money, it's no longer about money. It's about power after that.
Right.
And what happens is pleasure plays out. And then it becomes pain. And that's what we're seeing. It doesn't. Let's just take a social issue. Let's take abortion. It's a good clean one to take. I mean, that's a woman's choice. She can do whatever she wants to with her own body. I'm totally pro-choice, whether a woman wants to become pregnant or not pregnant. Totally want to stay out of the way of that. Mm-hmm. Where we become culpable as a people, when the government forces the rest of us to pay for it, when they use our tax money, hundreds of millions of dollars of it, to pay for hundreds of thousands of abortions a year, we as a people become culpable. We as a people begin to feel the weight of this on us. We don't want to make that decision. We don't want to have that decision made for us. We want to be free of that decision. And yet the cabal, this dark force, has to make us culpable. That's part of the whole process of cursing the human race, so that we are all judged in the end and none of us escape.
Huh. Wow. Wow.
And that's just for starters. I mean, I could go, there's 100 issues that we could take that basically all come down to ethics, the ethics of the soul.
Right.
When you reach a point where you realize that what you're doing or what you're saying or what you're thinking is adding pain or judgment to the human race, it begins to weigh on your soul.
Right.
And become aware of that, and you want to lift out of that, and you change that from pleasure into joy. It's a complete metamorphosis. It's a complete change. Then the sweat of your brow becomes sweet savor instead of a burden. Then the process of raising a child 1 minute at a time to maturity becomes a joy instead of a burden. And that's what changes the human race.
Yeah, you're right. Getting back in that balance, the rhythm. And I think that the consumerism and the whole idea of living in a plastic society just pulls us so far out of our natural rhythm. And therein lies the sickness. The only way you feel better is by acquiring more things that are, artificial, and you can never fill those holes. But if you find a life of balance and a life of maybe simplicity is the key. Maybe it's decomplexing your life. I don't know how I'm trying to say that, but
maybe. I don't know if that has. I know I can see the simplification of life become satisfying at first. I can't imagine how complex Donald Trump's life is.
Sure.
But I guarantee you that he's satisfied with what he's doing, and he gets up every day and is excited about what he's doing. But then I look at guys like Prince or Johnny Depp or Michael Jackson. They had everything, all the wealth and fame anyone could ever want.
Right.
And yet they were in so much pain in their life that it killed them. They had to take pharmaceuticals to kill the pain that they were feeling from the success that they had.
Yeah. No, that's a great point. But I think that what I guess I'm trying to say is this: to live our lives in this artificial microcosms will never be completely fulfilling. But you have to. Maybe you're right. Maybe it's altruism. We need altruism, or noble pursuits. Maybe it's environmental pursuits or something to find us back into balance, or at least try to feel that balance again. But I think we've just, so many have moved so far beyond it that they're drowned and they're overwhelmed in the world of illusion.
Well, that's a very good point. I mean, that's probably the best point of the night. They become overwhelmed with the illusion. And what is the illusion? The illusion is that we live in this material world, and in order to win, You got to have a garage full of toys and a 7-digit 401k, right? That's the winner.
Yep, exactly. And it's just, the night is flown by as usual. Again, we're almost just seconds away from our last break of the night. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take one more break here, and we will, of course, return. But I'd just like to make an announcement. I will be on Twin Flame Divine Fire tomorrow on TFR. So check TFR Live for the times for that. And there is no portals for the next week. I'll be traveling to my father's memorial. So just to let you guys know, but we are going to take a quick break and be back in just a couple minutes here for more of the Paranormal Portal and Mr. Brooks Agnew. So don't go away.
Extendivite really.
And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the last half hour of our show tonight. It's been a quick night as usual here on the portal. This is an officially recognized time anomaly that occurs every Friday and Saturday evening and Wednesday at around 7 p.m. Pacific time. But it is perhaps a wormhole of sorts. But I hope you guys have enjoyed yourselves. And Mr. Brooks Agnew is our special guest tonight. And we have just been, it's been some amazing discussion. So thanks again, always, Mr. Brooks.
Oh, my pleasure. Hey, I just wanted to let everyone know that October is conference month. I've got a couple of conferences that you want to be aware of. One is called Disclosure Con. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like Comic-Con meets Disclosure. Aww. It is going to be phenomenal. It's going to be on I think it's called Pine Top or Mountain Top. It's in Arizona. And the other one is called Stargate to the Cosmos. And these are, it's the 26th through 29th of October. So one's the 4th through the 5th of October. The other is the 26th through 29th of October. Both of them are listed at X Squared Radio under the Events tab. So if you go to the Events tab at xsquaredradio.com, it's on the left-hand side. You need come out there, join me out there. It's going to be an amazing 2 events. Wow. Pick one and be there. I would love to meet you.
Oh, yeah. Brother, I'd love to be there. And I hope some of you guys out there listening will have a chance to go. God, I'm going to do what I can. I'd love to do the conferences. And it's funny that you should mention that because we've been asked, that's the second time in the last week I've been asked had to talk about conferences. And it's something I'd love to do. But, just being a parent and it's my wife and I and little child, I don't have as much flexibility to do things like that as I may like. But maybe I can drag the whole family. We can make it a big road trip or something.
That would be amazing because, Comic-Con and Disclosure is really fun. You're going to see Star Wars people there and Star Trek people there. And I don't know what celebrities are going to have there, a few. But then you got the Disclosure movement, all of Secret Space Program and several consciousness panels. It's going to be phenomenal.
Yeah, I imagine Stephen Greer would probably be there, huh?
I don't think he's going to be there this time.
Oh, really? Oh, was he at another one?
We've had him there in the past. He went a little bit different direction than we were going with this.
Oh, okay.
I think we're taking it to another direction.
Okay, gotcha. Well, that would be phenomenal. I Lord knows I'll do what I can to be there. But again, that's at xsquaredradio.com.
Yes, I put the link in the chat room. So all of you in the chat room, thank you very, very much for supporting us tonight. Tell your friends because the chat room is free. It means it don't cost nothing. And tell your friends about it and go to Paranormal Portal and sign up for the archives because there are hundreds and hundreds of hours of great content there for your enjoyment.
Yeah, exactly. If tfrlive.com/paranormal portal, or you can go to X Squared Radio as well under those and sign up to become a subscriber of TFR Live. You'll have access to all of the archives, not only of our 2 shows, but every show that exists on the TFR Live roster. And there's some amazing hosts out there doing some amazing work and just so much information. It's incredible. I'm just looking. Okay, I'm on X Squared Radio. Yeah, but I want to put it up on the screen so that people on YouTube can see it. So I'm at xsquaredradio.com and then what? For those events. Okay.
/events.html.
There it is. I'm gonna drag this over and let people see what we're talking about here on our YouTube feed.
And I will drop the link in the YouTube feed.
Okay, so here's the events page of X Squared Radio, everybody, and you can see Disclosure Con. Oh, that sounds like a blast. Oh, so this is something that you're directly involved.
Michael Barra is going to be there with the ancient aliens on the moon. I'm going to be there. I think they're trying to get Dan Aykroyd or.
Oh, that'd be awesome. I want to talk about MIBs with him.
Yeah, he's got some really crazy stories himself. Yeah.
And then Stargate to the Cosmos is going to be amazing too. I mean, there's like 72 events during those days.
Wow.
It's really, really packed.
And where are these? Is it Arizona, both of them, or just one of them?
One's in Arizona, the other's in Albuquerque, New Mexico. So both of them are fabulous places to visit.
Oh.
The one in Arizona, when you go from Phoenix up by there, if you're going to drive, you go right by Devil's Tower, which is where Close Encounters of the Third Kind was filmed. It's really spectacular.
That is really cool. Yeah, that's an amazing. Have you heard of speaking of the Devil's Tower, have you heard of the theory that it's a petrified tree?
It looks like a tree to me. I mean, it would have to be thousands of feet tall, but yeah, it's pretty incredible.
It is really incredible. And when you look at it, and there's a site out there that's done a few of these different sites that just kind of defy traditional geology, but they do look like they were once trees. And what the hell cut them down? That's what I want to know, because those are huge.
So one of a piece of equipment. They said they were mining, and that's what left the Grand Canyon. It didn't take millions of years to make that thing. It was made like in a few weeks.
Oh my God. What the hell were they mining? Gold?
The Gorilla Kings.
Exactly.
Now, when you're at these conferences, Brooke, what do you talk about exactly? I mean, if you're a presenter, what do you present?
I have several presentations, but these two I'm doing the Remembering the Future, which is a 90-minute lecture on how to use your consciousness to manifest bounty in your life. It's kind of a high-tech self-help, but it is quite the experience to learn. It's called Remembering the Future, the Physics of the Soul and Time Travel.
Wow, that's amazing.
The other lecture is a 90-minute lecture on the North Pole Inner Earth expedition. So it's all about hollow earth theory, all the science that has, we've discussed it on your program before. There's so much science that just lays waste to the current idea of planetary core geology. But when you see it on the screen, you see the math, or you see the diagrams that were drawn or synthesized by, say, Washington University, or you see the Themis satellites and how they were used and what data they came back with. You just scratch your head and go, my gosh. And I'm really the only clearinghouse for all of this science, because, PhDs, they know a lot about very little. And they don't talk to other PhDs. That's just not done. It's just like, you don't go to the other teacher's lounge. It's just not done.
Right.
But I gather all of these, world-class PhD peer-reviewed papers and combine them all into one presentation. And once you see the pieces linked together, you get the whole picture. And it is stunning to see our planet from space, from the ocean, from the inside, using seismology, using spectroscopy. It is quite amazing.
Now, I know you had at one point had stated that you were trying to put together an expedition. Is that still the case?
Yes, it's still the case. Obviously, it has to be, funded, because it takes about $3.5 million just to rent the ship and get all the proper people on that ship, get it to the location, gather the data, and then return to port. That's just $3.5 million for that. Oof. Once you get all the data, then you want to do post-production and put it together and say, a 13-piece miniseries on Hulu. That's another $5 to $6 million to get that done. Oh my God. It's just, when you go to the movies or you see a documentary, stay till the end and look at the credits.
Yeah.
You'll see hundreds of names. grips and editors and lighting people and sound people.
All
All those people make money. They all got to pay them all money to do what they do, because that's what they do. They're professionals. Like the breakfast we had Thursday morning with the Dallas Producers Association. There were 42 people at that breakfast. Every single person at that breakfast gets a salary, for producing movies. So to do a single episode, a single 50-minute episode on Hulu is about $20,000.
Wow. Okay.
So you can see you're going to do a 13-piece series for a year. You got a 13-piece season for a year. You're talking about, $260,000 minimum.
Wow. That is just phenomenal. And your point is to go up there to the North Pole, is it? Yeah, that's where you're trying to go to, right?
Yes, we have narrowed this down to about a 10,000 square mile region, which is not that big. It's 100 miles by 100 miles. We can survey that space in about 15 days. So we're looking for an opening in the crust. Keep in mind, the ocean in this particular area is 4,400 meters deep. So it's not like there's, an opening going into the inner earth, but there may be an opening in the crust. But that's miles underneath the ship. And the ship, even though it's a long icebreaker with 75,000 horsepower, it doesn't have 13,000 feet of cable on it. You can't lower something down to the bottom and take a sample. There just isn't a ship like that in the world.
Sure.
You'd have to send a drone, down to the bottom, take a sample, and then it has to run a program. So you wait a couple of days for this program to run. It sinks to the bottom, takes its sample, floods the ballast, comes back to the surface. That takes 20 hours for that to happen. You don't get the information until it gets back to the surface. There's no radio that you can key down on and look at what the drone is doing on the bottom, because radio waves don't go through water. You have to wait until that drone reaches back to the surface. Then you download the data. If you get it, great. If you don't, you try again. You could see it's a very time-consuming process.
Right. But what an exciting opportunity, though. And no, on one of our last shows, we were talking about this, and you said that there was evidence of creatures that could be emerging from this undersea ocean, or on the inner Earth ocean.
He used a stingray as a
stingray. Yeah.
Right. The 2,500 species of rays that showed up in 2008. Well, that's phenomenal. I mean, it never happened before, and we think the only coincidence that we can think of is this calving, this breaking off of this giant piece of ice in the Arctic in 2007, which made the Northwest Passage navigable for the first time in, I don't know, forever. I mean, since recorded time anyway, maybe 20,000 years. We don't know. Mm-hmm. But the point is that the two oceans couldn't blend before that because it was trapped behind all that ice. Now it's since refrozen, and it's refrozen thicker than it was before. So there's no ice breaking that area. But we can get close. We can get to about the 96th parallel. We can go all the way to the North Pole in the summer, but the opening is not at the North Pole. It's off quite a ways from that. It's at about an 86th, 87th parallel. And it isn't always, but you got to plan for it. You got to say, okay, we're going to go in July of, say, 2020. That's how long it would take us to get all the assets in place to be able to make that trip. We have no idea if that Arctic ice is going to be open in 2020. Just no idea. But we got to spend the money now to get there.
Wow. It's just amazing, though. I just love the whole idea. It's
Well,
like,
you guys are pushing me to ask the question, Brooks. What happened to Dallas Thompson?
I don't know who's Dallas Thompson.
Dallas Thompson. Okay. So he was supposed to back in 2002. He was on Art Bell's show, and he was going to go to the North Pole, and he was going to take a solo trek backpack helicopter down to the through the hole in the crust in the North Pole and go visit Hollow Earth. So, okay, good. All right, you don't know him. That's fine. But I want to know what happened to him because apparently he just disappeared.
Well, I don't know. I mean, somebody handed me a book in 2004 called Our Hollow Earth, and I read it.
Mm-hmm.
It was amusing. I put it on the shelf, and I didn't think about it again for about a year and a half. And then that's when the picture was taken of both with auroras over both poles,
Right.
which was early 2005, March or April of 2005. And that's when everybody at JPL, my old buddies at JPL, that's when they went nuts. They went, what? Can't have auroras over both poles at the same time. The aurora is caused by the solar wind. So that's when the Themis satellite was whipped together really fast. They launched it in 2006. They did the L something drop on the moon, where they dropped that 2,000 pound weight on the moon up at the pole to try to spectrographically look at the soil structure using the spectrograph from Earth.
Mm-hmm.
They found out that the moon's soil has a lot of water in it, a lot of oxygen in it, a lot of helium-3 in it. I mean, just incredible amount of energy in the soil of the moon. So all these magnificent space projects got started in 2006. And now we're combining that with NASA's mission to Earth, which, we really haven't done that before. But NASA has been doing a tremendous amount of work since 2007 on Earth itself. And we've discovered so much about where the auroras come from, about the electrojet of the Earth, and what the core is made of, and where the magnetosphere comes from. And this is all new stuff. And the geology textbooks haven't changed, one word. They still think we live on a molten ball, floating in space. They're way behind the curve.
Right. Now, that does bring to light a question that I remember thinking of this quite a while ago. It was right after your first visit, but not quite at your second visit. And I forgot to ask you last time. But if you have a moment, have you ever seen those well, I've seen them on YouTube, and what they are allegedly is they are observations of our sun. But what people have seen, or they're stating that they're interpreting these to be these large objects are coming up to the sun, seem to be siphoning off energy or something, and then going away. Have you seen any of these?
A lot of these images are taken with the single channel digital infrared detector that looks at the sun.
Okay.
Since that time, we've put up the SDO. The SDO is the stereographic solar observatory, and it does a really great job. We get to look at it in H alpha. You can look at it almost in real time, not quite, but almost in real time. The other has to go through bakeouts from time to time because the sensor becomes saturated. But the resolution of that sensor is it is not able to resolve anything, smaller than probably 200 pixels on a screen. Mm-hmm. So when you see something that looks kind of like what they call a starship or a light ship, it is not. That's just an anomaly in the chip itself. When the chip gets close to having to be baked out again for a few hours, it begins to get these flaws in it that kind of look like top hats or flying saucers.
Okay.
Those are not real. That's not that kind of sensor, it's just an infrared sensor. It can't resolve images. That's not what it's there for. So the SDO is much better at that, and it has not observed anything like that. Okay. It's very good at picking up the magnetic filaments, the sunspots, the what are called coronal mass ejections. You can really see those very well on the SDO, where you can't really see it on the old sensor that's been up there for about 20 years.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, that's good to know. I mean, it was just kind of a creepy idea that these huge, Jupiter size, or larger ships could be coming up to the sun, sticking a tube down in there, and then, filling her up, like it's a interstellar 7-Eleven, and then just taking off again. It's like, wow.
Yeah. Consider that the outer, corona of the sun is way hotter than the surface. The surface is somewhere around 6,000 degrees Kelvin, which is, we're getting ready to send a probe up there later on, or actually early next year, and it's going to go right to the surface of the sun. But it first has to get through the corona, which is way hotter than the surface. So I wouldn't worry, because they're going to go at night. But anyway, it's no big deal.
They'll have the sun all turned down by that time.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's good. That is just something. But to do something like that, you start thinking in terms of shielding, like an energy type shielding. And I know that there were several people that were apparently looking into the idea of plasma being a method of shielding.
Yeah.
But would there be a substance that wouldn't melt, and could something operate on that kind of temperature?
Sure, because the main transfer of energy is going to be in the infrared range. Yes, you're going to have X-rays and you're going to have higher frequencies, but the melting energy, the energy that would vaporize something, is in the much longer wavelength, 950, 1,050 nanometers. And there's ways to shield that. You can shield it magnetically. You can change the emissivity of the ship to where it doesn't absorb infrared, hardly at all. So it just doesn't elevate in temperature, and it just slide right up to it and take whatever you need to take and go away again. Infrared energy is not that hard to shield against. The higher energies, magnetic energy, X-rays, gamma rays, much harder to shield against.
But can it be done? So all of those energies are present on the sun. So if they're sending something up there, how would they shield against those things?
Well, I don't think that they really. There are ways to do it with lead, but you're not really shielding. You're just absorbing the X-rays.
Oh.
What you have to do is create a skin effect, which, if you've ever been to the Boston Museum of Science, you know what I'm talking about. The skin effect is a phenomenon that occurs with high voltage electricity. You can put a person inside of a kind of a bird cage and shoot lightning bolts at it, and the lightning bolts will not penetrate the cage. They'll slide around it on the skin, so the bolts don't actually hit the person inside the cage.
Sure.
Well, that's the same thing with infrared energy or any other kind of energy. You have to route it around by using magnetic flux. It doesn't work with all kinds of particles, like neutrinos, for instance, are so small and so fast, they could literally pass through a light year of Earth without hitting anything.
Oh, my God.
So there's a lot of space in the Earth, but neutrinos are very small and very fast. So does it harm the biologics or the electronics for neutrinos to go through? We don't really know. Not in that kind of volume. But X-rays and gamma rays, yes, definitely do rip things apart by going through. That's how it's done. But does that mean they cannot be routed around? No, it just means we don't have the technology to do that yet. But it can be done with an internal magnetic field if we could figure out how to generate an internal magnetic field of that power, yes, it could be done.
Wow. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's a hell of a place to leave it, but we're all out of time here on the portal. Thank you, sir, for being here.
It's my pleasure. Guys, don't hesitate to have me back. I always enjoy being on your program.
Wow.
Oh,
we certainly appreciate it.
You'll definitely be coming back. There's no question. And ladies and gentlemen, stick around for Jimmy Jean Into the Microcosm. He and Brandy and Rio will be knocking it out of the park here soon on TFR, iHeart, TuneIn, and TalkStream Live. But we will be taking a week off here on the portal, but we'll be back the following Wednesday in August, I guess. So love you all. Be good, be kind, be nice to each other, and we will talk to you as soon as we can. Take care, everybody. Done? Anything? Nothing?
Good night.
Okay. All right. Take care, everybody.
Bye.
Woo!